Welcome back to the 6th Gear Garage. Today I'll show how to install calipers, brake pads, and rotors onto my beautiful 2007 Honda Fit Sport.
First, loosen the lugs. Lift the car, secure it on jack stands, and remove the wheel. If you're new to the channel, I live in northern Ohio, where Hondas just rust away. The calipers have looked like this since I got the car in 2022. And although the pads are still decent, you can see that the calipers aren't clamping the rotor that great anymore. And the rotors are rusty and getting glazed over. So I'm going to replace everything now before the weather gets cold. First thing I need to do is unbolt the brake line using this bolt on this bracket attached to the coilover here. And look at these coilovers. I installed these about 2 years ago. They don't even have 10,000 miles on them. And look at what 2 Ohio winters does. I even spray fluid film before each winter. Seriously, never buy a used car from this state. And it's 12 millimeter. Set this aside so I don't lose it. I removed these rotor screws in the wheel bearing video. I only put one back in. Dang. I slathered it with anti-seize too. Oh yeah. I'm turning the steering wheel all the way right for better access to the caliper bolts. While the caliper is still attached, it's a good time to crack the banjo bolt loose because I can get all the leverage I need. Just tighten it back up a little bit for now so it doesn't leak. I need a 17 millimeter socket, and I have a top bolt here and a lower bolt down here. Once I have them loosened up a little bit, I can switch to a smaller ratchet to save time. There's one. And two. And we'll set this right here. Oh, that's stuck on there pretty good. I don't want to just beat the piss out of it, because all the force of the impact goes to the wheel bearing, which I already replaced on this car, and it wasn't an easy job. I'll put a link to that one in the description if you want to see me struggle. It's getting there. I haven't had one this stubborn in a long time. Ah, rust. Of course. There's actually chunks of the rotor missing here. It was definitely time for front brakes. I need to clean this hub surface here before I put on the new rotor. I have a very uneven surface here. Sometimes it needs to be chiseled off. Because this surface needs to be perfectly flat. If you're from the Southwest, you can probably skip this step. But if your fit looks anything like mine, it might be a good idea. Now I'm going back and giving it the wire brush. These hubs are only about 2 years old. Thanks, Ohio. New pads, new caliper, and new clips. And the copper grease. This one goes on the inside because it has the wear indicator. When the pad gets really low, that tab will start screeching on the rotor. And that's going to go on the side with the piston. All right, I'm going to edit out the last 5 minutes of me failing at this. So what I had to do was bend these tabs out. They were in like this before. and that made these barely too thick to allow enough room for the pads. So, get some grease, and I put some of this on the edge of the piston and spread it around, and just cover anywhere the piston contacts the back of the pad, like this. And then in goes the first clip and the second clip. And put some grease on the end of the pad here, on these nubs where they slide into the clips, and get the other side as well. One side is in. The second side is always the challenge. Even with those clips bent out, tolerance is still really tight. Let's try this. If I can hold this side of the clip up, there we go. It's in. And repeat for the outer brake pad. And since those clips didn't fit right, let's make sure the rotor clears before I put everything on the car. Yep, we're good. Check out this banjo bolt first. This rotor looks clean, but sometimes they're oily from the factory. So I like to spray it down with a little brake cleaner here. That's pretty clean. I'll do the front side in a minute. Now that I'm all done touching it, the dreaded rotor screw. I know I could skip this, but I'll give my future self something to whine about. And these other two threaded holes here, if the rotor is rusted on, like it was for me earlier, you can thread 2 bolts into here, and they will push the rotor away from the hub. I didn't even notice. Did the old one have those? Oh, looks like it did. So don't be like me. Use those instead of a hammer. Here's the loaded caliper. This is the corrosion resistant coating, by the way. We'll see how it holds up. Note the bleeder valve. You always want to make sure this valve is facing up. Calipers are side specific. If this was facing down, it would be impossible to bleed because the air bubbles rise up, not down. I've got a caliper bolt, and I'm just doing a few turns by hand here for now. And the lower bolt. Just finger tight for right now. I've got some vice grips here. Actually, needle nose vice grips. And I don't want these to clamp all the way shut, but just enough to restrict the fluid from moving through the brake line. So this is just gonna squeeze the line a little bit. Hopefully just enough to stop a bunch of brake fluid from leaking out. Again, this isn't a lot of pressure. I don't want to damage the rubber line. Just squeeze it a little. Now remove the old banjo bolt. I want to make sure I get these old copper washers off the fitting. There's one. There's the other. Clean this up here. I want to make sure there's absolutely no dirt. Now on the new banjo bolt, I want to have one washer on each side of the fitting. Oh, you know what? These new washers are bigger, and they're up against that rusty area around the edge there. Yeah, that's not going to seal well. Yeah, here's the old versus the new crush washer. All right, if you're not in the rust belt, you can skip this step. But see that? That's what I want. And this is a very fine file. I don't want to leave scratches in the surface. Just level down that rust around the edge so the washers have a nice smooth surface to seal to. Blast it with some brake clean. Now I'm ready to install the banjo bolt. Copper washer on each side of the fitting. And these banjo bolts are usually 15 to 20 foot-pounds. I've got a good feeling for 20 foot-pounds after so many years of wrenching, but you might want to use a torque wrench. And release. That's going to make bleeding so much faster. Let's make sure this is tight. And these caliper bolts get 80 foot-pounds. Now it's time to bleed the brakes. I've got a 10mm wrench. Just set that on there. And I'm the only one here today. So here's my homemade Forever Alone bleeding tool. The notched end goes on the pedal. Seat's up too far. And the other end against the seat. I made this like 15 years ago. Hey, it's not stupid if it works. So with the brake pedal pressed in, loosen. Oh, I already got some fluid coming out. That was fast. Let the pedal up. And do another. I'll open a little slower this time and not make such a mess. And that's solid fluid. I actually have a video on bleeding the brakes alone using a tube and a bottle. And that's a lot easier if you have a lot of air in the lines, like if you just replaced a brake line or master cylinder. I'll link that one in the description in case you don't have a Forever Alone brake bleeder stick. I just pumped the pedal again and no air. That was fast. You're a lifesaver. Someday, someone's going to wonder, why did he have this? A little brake clean to wash off any brake fluid. And don't forget the little rubber cover for the bleeder valve. Straighten the wheel back up. Let's see here. This goes back on here to hold the brake line. Next, I reinstalled the wheel and torqued the lug nuts to 80 foot-pounds. Last, I topped off the brake fluid reservoir. I had already replaced the driver's side front brakes the day before, so this job was done. Thanks for watching.